And I remember the first paid client we had in the office.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone that's watching this live. Thank you for being part again in one of our episodes. And of course, we've done only one live so far for Get a Grip. And now this is the very second one. And of course, we have a great episode for you. And of course, if you don't know about us, this is the first time that you're coming across, don't forget to subscribe. We're trying to do some very interesting episodes for you every time that we can. And of course, I just came back from a long trip that we're going to talk in just a couple of seconds. But first of all, Gabriel, how has everything going so far?
Felipe, I've been very, very busy, which is one of the reasons why it's been a while since we've had an episode. But you have been traveling and you bumped into somebody, which was the catalyst for this episode. So where did you travel to, and what was that experience like?
Haha, yes, like a lot of people, I have been to NAB. And why? You just saw on the screen, Final Cut Pro 10. A lot of people think that there isn't a lot of Final Cut Pro 10 stuff happening at NAB, but, well, I would beg to differ because the amount of stuff that we saw there is just absolutely amazing. And, of course, the amount of people that we met there, or I met there, and everyone else that was there, of course. But anyway, let's not talk about all of that boring stuff because we actually have the biggest one here with us today, Chris Fenwick. And if you don't know him, I'm gonna let him tell you who he is. Hey, Chris, how are you?
Did you just call me fat? Did you say the biggest one? What? I don't know if I want to be a part of this. So yeah, we ran into each other at this year it was called the Faster Together Stage Party. No, Faster Together Party or LumaForge Party. Sam Messman from LumaForge had taken over the Guru Gathering that had been a Steve Martin joint for a couple of years, and we like ran into each other, started chatting. You were showing me Post Lab, amazing. And then somehow, who knows, it's just the way these conversations go, it turned into a discussion about podcasting. And all of a sudden you just went, whoa, stop. And I'm like, what? And he goes, how about you join us live on our show and we continue this conversation? I was like, yeah, sure. Microphones, cameras, me talking, love it. I love the sound of that. Let's do that.
Yeah, and of course, thank you for... my camera doesn't want to go to B, so yes, thank you. And I'm going to stop with the Final Cut thing because it's already annoying, right? You guys know that we edit on Final Cut. But anyway, yes. Chris, just so you know, it's because you haven't seen, but we have a quick animation about Final Cut. And I just was planning to be a little bit annoying in the beginning. But I don't think we're going to be mentioning Final Cut again. So, yes, it's true. We were having a very interesting talk about podcast, and you have an actual very big podcast about Final Cut Pro 10 called FCPX Grill, right? And there is a long history in the episodes on taking a break and coming back. So there's
another break.
Yes, and I was actually telling you. It would be great for you to, if there is a way for you to bring the show back, because I'm pretty sure that a lot of people miss it. But before we get to that, how did you start? Why did you even start that? And if you can give us also tips on how to make this as conversational as possible, because I don't want to sound like that we are on a interrogation room.
Let me give you the brief history of Chris Fenwick and podcasting, if you will. So in 2010, I was in a car accident. It was pretty bad, hurt my foot, and it meant that I could not do the god-awful 90-minute commute that I was doing to the primary edit house that I was freelancing at. And so I was stuck at home, and we actually worked out a deal where we set up an edit system in my living room, and there were certain jobs that I was able to do at home. Anyway, because I wasn't commuting, I had a bunch of free time, and I was asked to participate in Carl Olson's podcast, and at the time, now I can't remember what that podcast was called at the time. Something creative, something. Anyway, Carl Olson, if you don't know him, great guy. And I did one episode of his podcast as a guest, and he sends me an email like a week later saying, "I loved having you on the show. Would you like to co-host with me?" I was like, "Yeah, sure. That sounds like fun." And besides, I'm held up here with my foot elevated, and I can't drive, so yeah, let's do that. So I started doing that, and it was just a lot of fun. I found it, as you will find if you start your own podcast, it affords you the ability to talk to interesting people. Probably people that I would say are out of my class. Like most of these people, if I just call them and go, "Hey, can we talk for an hour?" They go, "Click," But when you dangle the opportunity of, telling your story in front of a large crowd, a lot of times people acquiesce. So we did that for about, Carl and I did that podcast for about 2 or 3 years. And then he quit. He decided he didn't want to do it anymore, as is the case. And that's an important mental note about podcasting. But I kind of felt like I had more I wanted to say. I had more I wanted to say. That was my whole reasoning. So at the time, I was a good friend of mine, Alex McLean, and we got to sitting around and chatting and saying, "Hey, let's do our own podcast." And, I'm an old guy, and Alex I think I'm like 30 years older than Alex or something like that. And I figured, well, he's like one of these really smart millennial kids. He probably knows everything. And I said, "Awesome, let's start a podcast. And you go out and, do all the stuff. And then, we'll do." And he goes, "Oh, I don't know how to do that shit." I was like, "What? I thought you were like smart." And so I basically had to crash course, figure out how to start the RSS feed and do all of the little behind the scenes stuff that isn't like the fun, sexy stuff, to figure out how to start a podcast. And so it took me about 3 weeks to figure that out. I did that, and we started a show called the Digital Cinema Cafe. And then after doing that for a year or year and a half or something like that, I had this idea. I was noticing at the time that I was enjoying talking about Final Cut Pro 10. At the time, and I can't remember exactly what year it was. I want to say it was like late 2014, maybe 2015. I can't remember. And I remember thinking, God, every time I find somebody who enjoys editing in Final Cut 10, we just like, bzzz, it's just a buzz. Like, "Oh, don't you love this?" And yeah. And so I was thinking about it. I thought, if I liked having those conversations, I bet you there's people that would enjoy listening to those conversations. And so it was the middle of the night. It was California time, 11 p.m., which means the rest of the world's asleep. And I threw out a tweet, "Hey, does anybody know somebody who's doing something interesting in Final Cut 10? And one of my followers said, "I know a guy in Texas who's editing a full-length documentary." And so I said, "What's his handle?" I sent him a message. Amazingly, even though it's like 1 a.m. in Texas, he responds to my tweet almost immediately. He follows me. We start DMing. And I'm like, and his name is David Fabello in Texas. And I said, "Do you want to do this conversation?" He goes, "Yeah, sure. That sounds like fun." I said, "When are you available?" He goes, "Well, I'm available now." I said, "It's the middle of the night." And he goes, "Yeah, I'm available now." So we recorded what ended up becoming, I think, episode 3 or 4 or 5 or something of Final Cut, the Grill. And so, by the way, FCPX Grill, worst podcast name ever. That is what happens when you name something in the middle of the night by yourself. Don't shop it around the office. "Hey, what do you think of this name?" Yeah. So I fully acknowledge FCPX Grill is the worst podcast name ever. But anyway, the conversation went great, and that sort of became the launching point. And then I contacted my friend Sam. I said, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing this podcast." We recorded what I think I ended up making the first episode with Sam Messman. And he said to me, because, Sam's got a little bit of insider track on stuff. He said, "Let me tell you, this is a great idea. You need to start doing this right now." And so that dates it as within a month of the release of Final Cut 10.1, which is when we got libraries and things got serious. So that's, I don't know what question you asked, but that's the beginning of podcast and the grill for Fenwick.
Oh my god, I can see Gabriel's mind just like you said, like about the Final Cut thing, and that's pretty much more or less how we started. Gabriel, he has a much longer history of podcasts than I actually imagined. So, do you want to deconstruct a little bit what he just said there, or maybe go back a little bit?
You're asking me?
Yeah.
You're saying that I have a long history of podcasting?
No, Chris, of course, has a long history.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's a couple of things, people that I want to say hi. Tony Gallardo, Eugene, you guys are watching there. So, well, thank you for being here. Tony Gallardo and Eugene are great friends of us and of the Final Cut Pro 10 community. Chris, really, this is a lot more...
Digital Convergence podcast was Carl Olson's podcast. Digital Convergence.
Digital Convergence, and there was another one that you mentioned too, wasn't there?
Digital Cinema Cafe.
Yeah, that one actually the first time that I heard about it, it had already ended. So
yeah,
it was such a shame. I really wanted to subscribe to that. But okay, what are the hurdles that you had in the beginning of creating FCPX Grill besides the name?
So I will say this. If this discussion is meant to be sort of a cautionary roadmap to wannabe podcasters,
pretty much.
What I would say is this, especially if you come from a production community, all right? So we all, if you're in this business, and I use the giant air quotes very loosely, if you're in our business, you probably think, I know exactly how I'm going to do it. I'm going to use these special effects, and I'm going to use this microphone and this compressor, and I've got a lifetime of ideas about how the perfect podcast is going to sound, and the story arcs and blah 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 blah. So here's the thing: you're gonna put an ungodly amount of time into producing your first episode, and it's gonna be awesome, right? Gabriel, you were saying before we started, oh yeah, I did all the animations. Well, you know what? The animations on the show, they look great. Like when Felipe was showing me how everything went, I was like, this is really cool. So you are evidence of my cautionary tale. So you put everything into the beginning, and then the second episode comes, and you're like, I don't have time to do all this shit, okay? Because it's hard. And of all, if there's three main things that a podcast audience wants, they want production value, they want great content, and they want consistency. Meaning consistency, like every Tuesday morning, is there going to be a show for me to download? Because I need to have something to listen to when I drive to work today. But of those three things, production value, good content, and consistency, the thing they want the most is consistency. Okay. The consistency, as it turns out, is the thing that is most valued by most podcast listeners. Now, if it's recorded on an iPhone in a bus terminal bathroom and the quality is unintelligible, then yes, that's an issue. But let's face it, we should be able to get a pretty good recording if we're in this business. So the production value isn't that big of a deal. The content is important. But here's the thing: the reason podcasts in general work is that you develop a relationship with these people. And so when you're hanging out with your friends, you know how sometimes you walk away and you go, God, that was a great conversation, which is nice. But sometimes you're hanging out with your friends and I was like, it was good to see Gabriel. What'd you talk about? I don't know. Can't remember. but because the relationship, in other words, the consistency, ends up being the most important thing. So what I tell people who are considering creating a podcast is I say, create a workflow that is sustainable. You're better off having less production value and being more consistent than having an awesome show that you are able to put out once every 3 to 7 weeks.
Let me ask you, are you also saying that no matter what, even if you don't have content, you should still put out something? Like at least to say hello to your audience?
I would say, and I'm no expert, I've just been doing this for almost a decade, I would say absolutely. Absolutely. There were many times when I was doing the grill where I didn't have a podcast, I didn't have a guest lined up, and I was like, I need a show for tomorrow. And so there's a handful of episodes that's just me talking, no guest. And like I would do something like, so, I had somebody lined up and they couldn't join me, and this is what we're going to do today. We're going to talk through the steps that you need to do when you start a project for the first time. And then what I would do is I'd keyword or tag those in my RSS feed as, beginner episodes. Like if you're just learning Final Cut, by all means, listen to this episode. So it'd just be me talking for maybe not an hour. Good God, that'd be awful. But a short episode, just me, but on time. Like I made that Tuesday morning deadline or whatever. I can't remember what day.
The consistency is definitely an area where Get a Grip struggles. I mean, it's been like a month since our last episode because we just haven't had time.
So imagine if I'm old. Must-see TV in the United States Thursday nights. Jerry Seinfeld at 8:00 or whatever it was. Imagine if you ran home and you turn, no, there's no Seinfeld on today. Or your favorite show gets preempted because of some sort of a special or a news announcement, and you're like, think about how that feels. And so as a listener, you got to remember your audience can, if you're doing your job right in terms of developing a relationship with the audience, they're going to feel the same thing. It's like, shit, there's no episode. I can't count on it. They need to be able to count on it. I really think that in terms of building an audience, that's one of the most important things. And then the other thing that I tell people is that if you're starting a new show or a podcast or something, you have to commit to at least a year and expect that nobody's going to listen.
Hey, that's where we're at.
How long have you been doing this show?
A little over a year now. I think it was February 2018.
Okay.
And we're sitting on, so to speak, 298 subscribers.
Yeah. And there's the other thing. I think from all the points that you said, which is the value, the production value, the content, and the consistency, we have tried to succeed on at least 2 of them. We have tried to at least make the show always look very good and sound very good and have very good content. Not always with a guest, but at least the content itself. Now, the struggle with the consistency has been either because of one of the other 2 wouldn't be matched to create a new episode. So, for example, either we don't have enough time to make the quality as high as we expect, or we didn't have a content that we deemed interesting to put out there. So I think this is something that if we are struggling, I think there is probably a lot of people out there struggling.
And I will say, though, that an advantage to us using Final Cut Pro 10 is that almost all the graphics are motion templates. So populating each episode with consistent graphics that look good, that's not really very time consuming at all, fortunately. It's that we're normally trying to share and sync 2 to 3 streams of 4K with a multicam edit, and I spend a lot of time on the edits trying to make it feel good, make it feel like you're just in the room with us having a conversation, cutting to people's reactions and lots of J&L cuts. I don't want it to just be, I could edit a whole episode in less than an hour, but to give it that level of finesse, I'm usually going over it once or twice.
So
And maybe that's a little bit less important if
I think
over consistency.
I think consistency. You'd be better off putting the two of you in, two chairs next to each other. I know that's a little hard to do with an ocean between you, and just have a single two shot, and just the same conversation would be probably welcome to your audience as long as you've done that part about developing that relationship. I really felt that was the number one thing that causes podcasts to fail. And we used to see it, I can remember when I was on Carl's podcast, and Carl Olson is a delightful man. I really enjoy Carl. I blame all of my podcasting on him. But everything I knew about podcasting, except for generating that RSS feed, which I had to figure out myself, I learned from Carl. And we used to talk about it. We'd start a stream every week, and we'd talk a little bit about the downloads from the week before. And it's really easy to obsess over that stuff. And I think that when your mind is thinking about numbers and downloads and listeners, you're not thinking about the content. And so just let all of that go. I mean, I joke about it all the time on the grill about and people tease me because I'll be having the conversation and I'll say, we should probably edit that crap out. And I never do.
That's true.
Never do. And I'll tell you, to be honest, if I sit down, let's say with one of you guys and say, hey, let's talk Final Cut 10 for an hour. And we finish the conversation at 9 o'clock in the morning. That show is compressed. I top and tail it. I compress it. I generate the metadata. I post it. It's downloadable on my stream, or my feed rather, within 30 minutes. So and the way I could do it so fast is it's an awful show. It's like it's completely raw. I do nothing to it.
And I think that's
it's also audio only though.
It is audio only, of course, yes. But here's the thing. I mean, I got one eye on the YouTube feed of this discussion. This looks fine. I mean, if Felipe would stop playing that damn Final Cut animation, this would be great. Take that button away from him. Boom, you got yourself a show.
There is one thing. Gabriel, what it is our tagline for the show?
Business, tech, angst, and imagination.
So the part of the angst and the imagination, that's where I let my Final Cut animation thing going a little bit crazy, because the thing is we haven't done a real crazy episode in quite a while, and I feel like in a lot of ways that's what I like about live, is because of the thing that you just mentioned about just cutting the head and the tail and letting it be really raw, because live is raw, is as raw as it gets, and you know what? It's easier for us to deliver something live because we don't need to spend the time later on in post. Then, so maybe that's a way that we could be putting out stuff more consistently, maybe. But
live would definitely be a much simpler. I mean, when we're done talking, the episode's up. Versus when we're done talking, we import camera cards, sync audio, send 4K files, an hour worth to each other. Copy that over, create a library, import
Stop it. Oh my God. This is what I mean. Okay, so in the beginning I said, hey, if you're in this business, you're like, oh, I know exactly how we're going to do this. We're going to create 4K files and we're going to sync it over Frame.io. It's like, it's not a sustainable workworkflow.
It's not.
It's not. Yeah. It's very tricky.
And it becomes a burden as opposed to going to work in the morning and saying to my wife, oh, it's great, I get to talk to this guy Felipe in Prague. He's really smart. And now it's just the conversation. This OBS Element OP thing that you're switching all this in. That's super cool tech. Use it. Nobody cares if this thing is 4K or 720. They don't care. That's what work is. We go to work to deal with shit like that. This is just, I mean, we're a bunch of pros having a chat over a beer, talking about business. I don't care. If you did this as 720, I could care less.
Well,
what if it was vertical?
I'd care a little.
Yeah.
I would definitely care a little. That would suck balls.
Okay. I have two questions here. I think I already lost one of them. Oh no, I remembered. Charles. I'm pretty sure that you had to deal with Charles at some point in your show. Like you put out a post and you get some very nasty comment. I think in the beginning you probably didn't even know how to deal with them, did you? Or did you engage them? Do you have any tales about that?
I'll tell you, I'm almost 57 years old. I'm not even sure I know what a troll is, but except for a guy who lives under a bridge. If you're talking about people that just want to engage you to give you shit about stuff, stop paying attention to them.
Yeah, ignore them.
I know that there's comments on the Digital Cinema Cafe website, which hosted DCC. And by the way, I'm not able to log on to the Digital Cinema Cafe website. And I don't know. It says, I don't know. Everything might be broken. Just stop paying attention. Like, who cares? Who really cares?
I don't remember the specific episode, but we got our first kind of trolling, and we were both pretty miserable about it. I think Felipe in particular. I'm sorry.
What happened? Describe what the comments were.
I don't even remember. I another one. We did an episode on the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K that was not a favorable review. It wasn't even a review at all. In fact, we advertised it not as a review, but everybody treated it like a review, and we got a lot of hits and a lot of really angry people. And that bothered me for a while, but then I realized, who cares? I mean, they can go anywhere else they want to get all kinds of other opinions on the subject matter.
So yeah, I think. I learned a lot doing Digital Cinema Cafe with Alex McLean. I'm at an age where I really don't care what people think about me. I know that there are many people. I always tell people there are many. The list of people, producers in the San Francisco Bay Area that do not want to work with Chris Fenwick is long and distinguished. Because I offended many people, and people either understand me or they don't. I think the people that do understand me know that when you hire me to cut a piece for you, all I care about is the screen in front of me. And unfortunately, that might mean I'm going to say something derogatory about the people staring at the back of my head. But ultimately, I want the screen to be right. I don't pretend to be a politician. I don't pretend to, be really good at saying the right thing in the right time. I'm probably going to put my foot in my mouth. But Alex, being much younger than me, I told you I'm like almost 30 years older than him. I remember there was, there was one instance where it was a couple years ago at NAB where Jerry Bruckheimer, was it Bruckheimer? Went on stage at a Samsung event, and he had a meltdown because he couldn't follow the prompter, and then he just turned and walked off the stage. I don't know. Do you remember that event?
Well,
I remember reading about it.
Okay,
I remember the one with James Cameron. Is it? No, Michael Bay. Michael Bay.
It was Michael Bay, not Bruckheimer. Whatever. One of those super explosion guys. So yeah, Michael Bay, and Samsung had this curved monitor, and they probably paid Michael Bay a crap load of money to come out on stage and read 4 paragraphs about how wonderful it was.
Yeah.
And Michael Bay had a massive meltdown. It was hysterical to watch. And he just went, turned and walked off the stage. He just gone. And so I have a friend who is he's a very accomplished teleprompter operator. He traveled around the country, the States in 2007 when Barack Obama was campaigning, who is, the teleprompter in chief, great at reading, and he's a great, speaker. And so my friend had traveled all over the country with him, and I said, hey, let's get this guy on. We could do a whole episode about teleprompting, and we could, have a good laugh at Michael Bay. And Alex said, no, I don't want to do that. I go, well, why? It's a perfect thing. He goes, no, I don't want to potentially offend somebody that, might have the ability to get me work. And I was like, and frankly, Alex is going to be, hopefully Alex is not listening to this because he'd be upset that I'm even telling the story. But I was like,
I can guarantee you he's not listening to our show. We don't put out episodes consistently enough to have grabbed him yet.
But they look great.
Yeah.
When we do, it will look great. So I don't care. I think the question was trolling. I don't care. I don't even know if people were trolling me or living under a bridge near me.
Yeah, for me, it took me a while to have that state of mind of not caring, because the first reason why I actually put content out is try to help people with workflows, with whatever it is that they want. That's the main type of content that I put out is educational content. And when there is someone trolling, it's very weird. So the way that I got around that was to 100% not engage, or try to, as much as possible, not care. I've been grilled on Twitter for a different reason recently, and it was for a reason that I wanted to, really help a part of this post-production area, but it's that gave me a sour taste in my mouth, and really it's difficult. Now, of course, I ignore. I read what there is of good stuff to read. I know that a lot of very nice people are watching, and a lot of people really appreciate, but it was difficult to get there.
I had an event happen last year at NAB, post NAB, and it was, I got sucked into watching it happen, but I did not partake in it at all. And let me see. Hold on. I got a phone call coming in here. Message. Sorry, can't talk right now. Oh, that's my line monitor. So
was it Alex?
Yeah. Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! Funny. So what happened was there had been every year for the last couple of years at the Faster Together stage, there was an event. I don't care. So yeah, I'm going to tell the story. I was thinking, like, do I really want to dig this up? Yeah, it's a funny story. So there's an event called the State of the NLE. And so basically, you get somebody from all the major users, and now there's 4, not 3.
Oh, I know which story you want to talk about, and are you really sure that you want to talk about that?
I'd like to hear it.
Well, yeah, I don't care. So here's the thing:
Okay.
I don't care.
Okay, because on Twitter went super crazy on that.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. So what happened was, I just don't like hearing people say stupid stuff, right? And I don't care if you wear pants or a skirt, if your skin is green, black, yellow, or white, or transparent. I don't care. If you say stupid stuff, I'm going to go, hey, you know what? That was kind of stupid. And if you get all butthurt over it, that's really on you. But I'm going to call stupid stupid when I hear stupid. And so a person who was, turns out they were the resident Avid user, had said 2 sentences of note. And in between the 2 sentences was a third sentence that was irrelevant. But in the first sentence, this person said, I like to consider myself NLE agnostic. And then they said something else, whatever. And then, so 2 sentences later, they said, oh, Final Cut 10, yeah, I opened it once, rolling the eyes and everything.
Very agnostic.
I was like, yeah. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to call stupid. Just saying you're NLE agnostic does not make you NLE agnostic. And I'll be totally honest, I don't remember, I don't know this person's name. I'm sure they're a very notable editor. No offense to them, but what they said was stupid. Yeah. You know, just saying you're NLE agnostic doesn't actually make you NLE agnostic. So I got called out on Twitter for being a sexist, misogynist, blah, 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 blah. Somebody went and looked me up on IMDb. I didn't really know I was on IMDb. I have never done any of that. I don't even know how to put something on IMDb. They found one reference to a TV show I worked on in the 90s, and they're like, oh, this person, they're obviously just a hobbyist, which, by the way, is why on Twitter my description now says #hobbyist because I thought that was so funny. If you want to call me a hobbyist, I've been doing this since before you were born. Whatever. If you want to call me a hobbyist, go for it. I hope you sleep well at night. I don't care. Mm-hmm. So, but the bottom line is like, in life, you don't get to just say things and make them be true. You have to live that.
Well, that was true. That was true up until like 2016.
You don't want to get into that. You don't want to.
I'm just saying, things have changed.
No, they haven't. Truth is truth. It is truth. Facts, numbers, truth, they all matter. If you choose to draw your reality from the reality of IMDb, well, you might want to call me a hobbyist. That's fine. The fact of the matter is most of the things that I work on are under strict NDA, and I can't even talk about them. So there is, in this instance, there is indeed an alternate reality. Everybody gave the press secretary a hard time when they said that. I think it was a slip of words. It was a poor choice of words. But when there are two sources of data, you can look at one and you can look at the other. It doesn't mean that one source is fully false and one is fully true. It doesn't mean that this one is fully false and this one is fully true. There can be 2 sources of data, and if you only see one of them, that's all you know, because you haven't compiled the data.
Yeah, I think the problem with a lot of people is that they only look and only want to look at one source of data. I think that's the problem. It's
the one that makes the most sense to them, and if your life revolves around IMDb, then that's your only source of data.
What is that? Confirmation bias, correct?
Yes, confirmation bias is a real thing, and it's damaging to the world. By the way, I want to go on record that when we organized this event here, the 3 of us talking, that none of us colluded with the Russians in doing it.
I cannot confirm nor deny my involvement with the Russians.
What are those? I don't know what you're talking about.
They live next door to you.
Well, they kind of do. There is a Ukraine family that lives just about upstairs there. And they're pretty noisy.
Anyway, we were talking about trolling, and I think the thing is like, I don't believe, and again, I'm old and I forget shit, but I don't think, Philippe, I did anything about that event last year post-NAB other than my first comment about, you really can't say that if you haven't truly looked at Final Cut 10.
Well,
And really, I was just defending Final Cut 10 because anybody who listens to my podcast will know that the learning curve in Final Cut 10, I used to call it the learning wall. First day, open it up. Oh, shit, quit. If you open it up once, you haven't given it a fair shake. And if you haven't given it a fair shake, you absolutely cannot consider yourself NLE agnostic.
I've met plenty of people where my first encounter with them, I found negative. I wanted to not like that person. But then I met them in a different circumstance and had a different encounter with them and decided, whoa, this person's awesome. I don't know. That first impression might not have been great, but it's not the whole person. That's not the whole story. And it's the same thing with an NLE. If your first experience is overwhelming, then you still have to push forward and play with the thing before you make a decision. And at the very least, before you make a decision and post about it.
And Chris, there's the other thing. I completely agree with you. I was on your side on that discussion, but the discussion was not going anywhere because people were obviously ignoring the very small part of the facts there. That was what you were saying was true. I mean, you can't just open an application and be agnostic by just closing it.
They wanted to make it a hashtag me too, or I would say hashtag I'm next event. And it wasn't. I wouldn't care. Okay, so I think one of the editors that I respect most in our industry is Scott Simmons from Nashville. Smart guy. He's the only guy I know that can hop literally day after day between seats of all the edit systems. And I got to say, if Scott said the same thing, I would say, yeah, he really is agnostic. But if he said the same thing with the eye roll, and I knew that he hadn't actually given something a fair shake, I'd call him out on it too. And I highly respect Scott Simmons, but I'm not going to let him get away with saying something stupid. It's just dumb. It's not accurate. And you know what? I don't care.
Okay. Since we're talking about NLEs. I think maybe we could talk a little bit about NLEs as a whole. Now, you've been doing this since before I was born, probably. You were pretty old, so.
What year were you born?
I was 87.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Well, 87, jeez.
I did my first live television broadcast in 1986, and I had been doing video production for a couple of years before that.
So, at that point, you didn't have Media Composer. You didn't have anything digital at that point in time. So you've gone through a lot of different applications. What made you choose Final Cut Pro 10?
Well, I would like to say that Final Cut 10 chose me.
Ooh.
No. Okay, so I used to own an Avid in the late 90s. It was awful. Hated it. I got a Media 100, which was great. It worked in real time. I got the most expensive one because it worked in real time. I was reluctant to get into Final Cut Classic because it had to render everything. And I was very, again, coming from a broadcast background, I wanted to go real time, but the computers were getting faster. And in the early 2000s, the metaphor that I used to speak about was kind of the digital soup. Like if we just throw all this stuff into the computer, let the computer handle all the pixels, as the computer gets faster, it will become more and more real time like. The problem is our frames kept getting bigger and our frame rates kept getting higher, and so we were throwing more shit into the digital soup, and the computers have been having a hard time keeping up. It's a long story. It's a story I've told many times, but there was an event in 2012 where I was traveling across country in a tour bus for BMW, of all people, and I had 5 shooters shooting DSLR cameras, feeding me footage all day, every day, and I had 2 to 3 deliverables per day that I had to cut on the bus as we drove across the United States, 3,000 miles plus. I think we made some detours. And at the time, dealing with H.264 footage, there was nothing that could keep up with it. Also, at the time, and I believe still now, there's enough of a mystery when it comes to the export times from Adobe Premiere. I just saw somebody who I highly respect, great editor, I can't remember who it is now, who just posted the other day, they posted a photograph of their export screen saying, "Come on, Premiere, export, damn it," or something like that. Like, why is that a thing anymore? It's 2019. My Final Cut timelines usually export faster than real time. I don't know why Premiere is still a thing. So this particular job in 2012, it was a massive amount of data. It was a very quick turnaround every day. Like I said, 2 to 3 deliverables per day, bouncing down the highway in a bus. And Final Cut was, and the aha moment for me was the fact that in Final Cut there is a checkbox that says
background render.
No, at the time it was, do you want to transcode?
Uh-huh.
And I was like, I don't know. Do I? Do I need to transcode? Why is there a checkbox if I don't need to check to transcode? So it dawned on me, maybe I don't need to transcode all this H.264 footage I've been pumping into this. So I turned it off and I did a day of editing, and I was astonished at how well it worked without transcoding to ProRes. And I was like, okay, I could pull this off because I'm just not going to transcode for 2 weeks in this tour bus. And it worked fine. And that was the nail in the coffin for both Premiere and Final Cut Classic in our office. And I came back and sat down with my boss and I said, okay, here's what I'm going to propose. We walk away from everything but Final Cut. And here's my 3-point sermon on why. And he said, are you sure? And I said, yes. And he said, okay, let's do it.
I'm going to put you against the wall just for a second. Can I take the witness as a hostile witness now? Okay, you say that, but from what I know, you don't use motion much. You prefer After Effects.
Yeah.
And is there any particular reason why either you don't like motion or any particular reason why you prefer After Effects?
Yeah, there's a video that you can watch Faster Together.
It's the one that you're talking about that you can just export from After Effects and it's just there on Final Cut. Yeah, sure. But
it's from last year at LumaForge, the After Effects in a FCPX workflow video. It's 14 minutes and 50 seconds. So the short answer is I love motion. I'm not good at it, but I love motion. And if you are a Final Cut user, whether you want to admit it or not, you are using motion. As a matter of fact, if you don't buy the $50 motion, you still have all the functionality of motion inside of Final Cut. You just don't know it and have access to much of it. But the primary reasons I use After Effects over motion in a day-to-day workflow is that I work with very, very high-end art designers and art directors. And they all use Adobe products without question. And I, in the LumaForge video I made last year, I talked about what I call layout confidence. And my layout confidence, I want to, when somebody says, I don't know if that looks right, I want to be able to turn over my shoulder and say, it's exactly right. I used your file. What do you want to talk about next?
Okay.
And here's the thing. If you open up if you were to open up, say, Final Cut, Photoshop, and let's say, I'm going to assume Resolve has some sort of a titler in it. I don't know. I've never opened Resolve, but I don't consider myself to be NLE agnostic. Um, and you laid out the same paragraph of text in all three of those apps, and you used Helvetica in both of them.
They're all different.
They're all going to look different. And my art director sitting over my shoulder, they're using Adobe. So I'm going to use their application, period, because of the layout confirmation, the layout.
Okay, I didn't do a very good job at grilling you, because the reason why is not you, is the others. It's just the people that you're working with.
Again, so here's the thing. Motion is fantastic. So I believe, Felipe, you were there Tuesday night at NAB at the Faster Together stage. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the event, Sam threw to Jeffrey backstage, and Jeffrey introduced the crew and said, hey, thanks everybody for working so hard. And then he tossed it to me to explain how I had done these quick turnaround edits. And I could not have done those edits had I not solicited the help of Ryan Wellborn in Atlanta and Alex Gollner in London to create the motion template that I use. And I'm sure that video is going to come out. I have a copy of it. But essentially, we did something that no other NLE can do. We used a feature of motion called timeline pinning that has the ability to look into the future and to pull frames from the future back to the present and play them in real time in a transitional element that looked like I was talking to somebody in the office here, and he goes, yeah, it sounds like about a day of After Effects screwing around. I said, yeah, and I could play it in real time and modify it in a split second. Totally cool. So, no, do I have a problem with motion? I absolutely don't. But it's the people behind me that I work for is the primary reason why I use After Effects and the Adobe suite when it comes to laying out text.
Yeah, and on this point, I would tell people to really watch your video from that Faster Together from last year, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes, last year.
And because what happens is you probably just need to ask them as well, like, well, make your timeline a little bit longer, so in case you something changes or whatever, the file is always the same length and etc. It links back to Final Cut. But you know what? There is one problem that I see with After Effects, and it's not the other people using or anything like that. It's just the fact that if you stop paying right now, you don't have access to any of your past projects.
Yeah, I'd have to. They got us there, don't they?
They did.
Sucks balls. I think the idea of not being able to buy software. I understand that we are moving toward a service economy. Even Apple at the last event, with all of the Apple TV and the Apple TV Plus and Music Plus and News Plus and Plus D Plus and all that crap. That is the future of many industries. I gotta have a subscription from every one of my customers because I need to count on their money coming in.
And you know what? I want to do a shout out to Alex 4D, Alex Gollner. The thing is, Alex is doing something that maybe some people are gonna be interested in, and he is getting whatever After Effects animations that people might have, and he is just translating everything manually and depending on how it is to motion. So for example, if any of you are stuck with After Effects, not in the case of Chris, because Chris is getting those things from other people, but if you are in your own production environment there and you're looking to using motion a little bit more, bringing these animations inside Final Cut and being able to change them within Final Cut without needing to wait for anything, Alex Gollner is the guy that you guys should be reaching out to because he's doing some terrific jobs. He showed me some very complicated animations that were done on After Effects, and he reproduced 100% of it on motion, and then those people were able to simply change. Yeah. And he translated not only the animation, but what it was the design language of that style that they were going for, so they could do a lot of things afterwards with that.
Now, is this an actual like service that he's providing? Like he'll do bespoke motion work to translate your old After Effects projects?
I'm going to speak on his behalf because we were talking about this at NAB, and yes.
Huh?
Good
I
luck,
did- I know-
Alex.
I spent a lot of time with Alex at NAB, and he withheld that information from me. I will tell you,
Well, he didn't want to offer the service to you specifically.
I don't blame him. I got enough free work out of him making that transition for me. Which, by the way, I don't know if you guys caught this, but the transition that Alex made for me using the timeline pinning is available on fcp.co if you want to download it and play with it.
What's it called?
Alex, I don't know. I don't know what it's in the last couple of weeks at fcp.co. And so what's cool about it is like, which may not have translated in the videos, but the background image that's in the transition, those were iPhone photos that I took during pre-production. Okay. And there's a drop zone. You can drop that in. You can colorize it any color you want. You can change the transfer mode that the color wash does on it. It's very cool. Oh, there's a drop zone for the logo. So you can drop in any EPS logo or PNG logo that you want. So you can have your logo up in the corner. And I had actually meant to say, starting tomorrow, you'll be able to download this from fcp.co, but I got nervous and screwed up. So yeah, it was kind of a lame.
Well, that's what happens when you're live, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, for example, I was talking and I had Gabriel's video on it, just nodding. Well, but that was on purpose, of course. Gabriel, you have been very silent.
Well, I wasn't at NAB with you guys this year or any year. So, yeah, I missed a lot of that. I do plan on going to the summit this year, though, and
Chris,
I'm
you're going to be
hoping.
at the summit.
Yes. I'll tell you right now, I think that Creative Summit is absolutely the place to be. I think I enjoy it more than NAB. Mm-hmm. It's a great group of people. I hope the company that does it is making money off of it, because I would hate to see it not happen.
Yes.
I know that that's a difficult business to be in, the sort of, I don't even know what they call it, seminar thing. But I think it's absolutely worth the time. I think that without a doubt, whether it's NAB or the Final Cut Creative Summit, the times that I appreciate the most are like the discussion that Felipe and I had that night. Like those, like, oh my God, let me show you something cool. Flip open your laptop, sitting in a lobby somewhere. They're great. They're great to be able to sit and have, one-on-one contact with somebody like Peter Wiggins from FCP.co for an hour. Yeah, I cherish those moments. And you make great friends. And it's something extremely cathartic to spend time with people in this crazy industry and realize, oh God, I'm not alone. Thank you.
Yeah, I felt completely embraced by the community. It's the first time I've felt like I've had sort of an in-group in like over 10 years, since I entered my 30s and now into my 40s. It's been a long time. And it's like, it doesn't matter whether you're brand new or you're at Chris Fenwick and Michael Matzdorf level, like you feel welcome and respected across the spectrum of experience.
Yeah.
Industry pros to wedding shooters, whatever. And that was fantastic. If it's your first time, you can be a little starstruck if it's your first time going, but then you realize these people are here. They're just like me. They just have more years under their belt, but they're nice people. They're passionate about what they do and what they want to learn and what they want to teach. And it was just, I recommend it to anybody, especially premiere editors. I highly recommend they go to the Final Cut 10 Creative Summit.
So at Monday afternoon or Monday noonish, at NAB, I was leaving the Frame.io booth. I had to go drop off gear. The only time I went into the convention center, I had to go drop off 2 wireless microphones at the Frame.io booth and leave. And on my way out, I ran into Alex Lindsay and let me think, who was it? There was Alex Golner, Alex Lindsay, Stephen Bays, and Michael Matzdorf, and I. And we went out to the cafe and we shared a plate of fries and a soda, or I don't know, somebody had coffee. And I was you were talking about being starstruck. I'm sitting there with that group of guys going, why am I here? They're going to ask me to leave any second. Like, I felt like,
you felt like that. You felt like that.
Absolutely, absolutely. These guys are geniuses and giants in this industry. But like, I was like, any minute now they're going to ask me to leave. Like, I felt like a kid the first time you get to sit at the adult table at Thanksgiving. You know, like,
yeah, I remember.
Do I have to leave? Do I have to leave yet?
I remember at the summit, it was a break for lunch between sessions, and a group of guys and I were headed to a cafe. And Mark Spencer, who I'd not met yet, came run up behind us, and he was like, "Oh, can I join you guys for lunch?" And it's like, "No, Mark. I mean, of course you can join us for lunch. Right. I mean, you're like a hero of mine." So it's awesome. It's just a really, really good time.
Yeah, it's a great, and as a matter of fact, it's such a big thing. And I'm going to kind of toss this out here for anybody who wants to take this on. I for one promise that I will participate. I believe so strongly in the idea that it's these one-on-one casual conversations at these big events that are the most I'll use the word precious. The best moments of these events are those kind of lobby discussions, like to the point where it's like, oh yeah, this talk is happening. I gotta go. By the way, for everybody who still uses their cell phone, this is the international hand gesture for what time is it. But it's those lobby conversations that are the most valuable moments that I firmly believe that if somebody wanted to do this, pick a date, pick a city, pick a hotel, invite everybody. And say, there's going to be no speakers, no fees. It costs nothing to participate. We are going to take over the lobby of this hotel, and we will drink, we will eat, we will share ideas, we will commune with our peers, and it will be a gathering. It will be nothing more than a gathering. Completely impromptu, completely, like, all we'll do is say, hey, the lobby's open. So pick a hotel that has a big, comfortable lobby with like a restaurant, a bar, and a lot of seating, and we're just going to take over that thing. And
do you get their permission first, or how many hotels have you been forcibly removed from?
Well, first of all, I've never done this. I'm just saying, I think that this is a thing that could be successful.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I also think that could really work.
The one downside to it and I was talking about this with Scott Simmons, and he said the problem with it is for those people who, have to like, they have a more traditional job and they have to get permission from their boss. Hey, I'm going to this industry event. Oh, what is it called? What does it cost? Well, we're just meeting at a hotel in, wherever. And then their bosses are going to go, that sounds like you're just partying. And yes, it does. But the point of it is to have these conversations.
So that's why it's a hotel and not a pub then.
Yes. But at any rate, I think that an event like that, a non-event, you call it a non-conference, whatever, it's a communal event. And it might get to the point where you say, we have to get one meeting room and maybe we will get a projector but frankly, 10 people huddled around a laptop at a hotel bar is a legitimate way to share ideas.
Mm-hmm. And oh my God, at NAB, you're actually bringing me back to NAB, which was like 2 weeks ago. And there was that Monday evening. talking to Chris Fenwick, and then there is Mike Matstorff, and then there is Westplate, and then there's all these guys around watching on what I'm trying to show on a laptop, exactly like that. And
Exactly. The only downside of that is that, something is happening, we have to walk away.
Yeah.
Literally, there was a scheduled event / announcement sort of thing that was going on. It was like, oh, sorry, Felipe, I gotta go.
Yeah, which is an
But what
announcement that no one can talk about yet. Right?
It's gonna come.
Yeah, it's gonna
I
come.
think that's
But and I recommend to anyone that ever sees Chris Fenwick in the street or anywhere, talk to him, because this guy is amazing and he's a true connector. You immediately, I think we talked for like 2 minutes and you were already dragging Steve Martin around. Come here, you have to talk to this guy.
I still say you guys need to do that.
Yeah,
I think there's a business opportunity there for both of you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, okay, quick question here. Because we've been talking now for a little over an hour. First of all, Gabriel, anything else you would like to add? I think we should be grilling Chris a little bit. I don't know. We're not doing a really good job at that.
Well, we're out of practice.
I'm unflappable and a hobbyist. So there.
Okay. When I pitched Get a Grip originally, I said I don't want this to be the Final Cut Pro 10 show. Just to open it up to the community. That said, I mean, we've mentioned it a lot because it's what we use. It's what we love using. But your podcast has Final Cut Pro 10 right in the title. So have you found that limiting, or have you found that playground plenty big enough to have fun in?
That's a loaded question. No, it's not limiting, because one of my goals was to talk about Final Cut. Like I said, I enjoyed the conversations I was having off mic with people so much. I thought if I enjoy having them, other people will listen. So its intention was to be limiting. Its intention was to be, the nerds in school playing Magic the Gathering in the library during lunch break. I'm not trying to be a cool kid. I'm not trying to be, the bully out on the playground. We were purposely gathering to be nerds, the outcast. But if, growing a big audience is the goal, yeah, it's probably limiting. However, that being said, if you look at the numbers, there are more copies of Final Cut Pro sold than, I believe. Well, it's a conflated number because of the way the Creative Cloud works. But there are many accounts of people claiming that there are more Final Cut 10 users than Premiere users. So it's just a matter of finding them and appealing to their temperament, if you will. There's some of us that are, sort of active wannabe pundits, defending it. And then there's other people that are like, oh, is there a battle brewing? I'm just trying to make this video. They don't even care. They got their head down, they're doing their thing, and they don't even realize that there is any angst among users. By the way, somebody arrived at the office, and I expect somebody to come walking through that door at any moment.
Well, that's a great moment to actually ask you how can people find you online, if they want to hire you or anything like that?
I'm Chris Fenwick most places. Chris Fenwick on YouTube, Chris Fenwick on Twitter, Chris Fenwick on Instagram. Although my Instagram account is really a different part of my life. It's about my family life and my woodworking stuff that I do. And actually, I just started a second business called Fenwick.studio. It's another website. And basically, it is a attempt to dabble in the woodworking world. I've done a few projects for neighbors and friends, mostly accessibility things, people that needed smaller steps to get in and out of their house, as they got older. And I just enjoy cutting wood and making sawdust, and it's a whole nother part of my life. But that's what Fenwick.studio is, and that's what my Instagram account is kind of more about that.
Has anybody turned you away because they didn't like the brand of woodworking tools you were using?
No. Why?
Sorry, it was an NLE thing, you know.
Well, no, you'd be surprised. I think you find this in everything. Like in the woodworking world, it's like yellow, orange, blue, teal, green. You're either a DeWalt or Milwaukee or Makita, and like it's very polarizing. It's so funny when you find somebody.
So it is. Okay.
Oh, very much so. Yeah. And when I started buying tools, I chose DeWalt only because my brother said, "Yeah, I like the DeWalt 20-volt stuff. It's never failed me." So I started buying that stuff a couple of years ago when I bought my house. And it's stupid. It's like stupid how addictive it is. Like I see something that's yellow and black and I'm like, "Oh, what's this?" And yeah, I think pretty much everything I've bought has been DeWalt, and it doesn't matter. It's like it's a hard piece of steel that cuts wood. It doesn't really matter. But there is an advantage to sticking to a brand, just like, if you only buy Canon cameras, you might be able to share batteries across them, things like that. Yeah. So yeah, it's very polarizing. It's pretty funny, actually.
Cool.
Interesting.
And Gabriel.
So, yeah.
Yes. Oh my God, I'm doing crazy switching now. Sorry, guys, because I got lost. Okay, what were you saying?
You said my name.
Oh, yes.
I'm here for you. What do you need?
Yes, where can people find you to hire you and otherwise just troll you?
You can troll me anywhere, anytime, I suppose. Plenty of people have found a way. I run Ace Enterprises, aceenterprises.com. Otherwise, yeah, it doesn't really matter. Most of my clients are repeat clients anyway. I don't really get business through my website, so I'm not too worried about that. At the moment, I'm more interested in the show and this podcast and reaching out to other video professionals. So
okay.
I guess I'd rather have somebody subscribe to our show and leave a good comment than Chris.
I have a question.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Find having the two E's together in Ace Enterprises is a problem? Is it confusing to people?
Yeah, but so is using a Z instead of an S.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No. Our company website, Slice Editorial, same thing.
Yeah.
Two E's in a row. It's always you always have to say it out loud.
Yeah. Well, most people can't spell Gabe correctly, and I'm not even kidding. So.
Really?
Yeah, you go to a Starbucks and they start shouting "Gab," it's ridiculous. So I'm used to it.
Okay.
Cool, gentlemen. I would like to thank both of you to have taken time of your day, of your working day. I don't know if you're working today, but it's Good Friday in a lot of places. It might be a holiday there as well, right? But our life is always about work, and let's try to get some balance there as well. But anyway, Chris, thank you very much for coming in. And
you're welcome.
If you guys liked this video, by any chance, just hit subscribe, like, that would be super appreciated, of course. Leave a comment. Thank you for everyone that was watching. Tony Gallardo stayed there through the whole thing. He was asking us to grill Chris, and sorry, Tony, yeah, we weren't very good at it. I tried to put him against the wall, but didn't work so much. And, well, you can find me as Bias Felipe on Twitter. You cannot find me on any Facebook platforms whatsoever. I do not like that company at all, and I don't want to give them any of my data or anything at all. And I have a website called Creative Beast, which is for my business, my production and post-production business. So I guess that's pretty much it. Guys, you have any last questions?
Just stay tuned, I guess, and we'll have another episode in 16 weeks that'll look fantastic.
Once a week, guys. Go for it. I challenge you. Once a week.
Okay. Challenge accepted. Yes. Yay. Amazing. Okay. So, everyone, goodbye. Have a nice one.